Making a trade revisited video just a year after it happened is admittedly a bit quick to be doing it, but I every now and then will make a trade revisited video this soon if it looks to be something very significant. And this Bryce Young trade, many people are calling potentially the worst trade of all time by the Carolina Panthers. Well, let's get into it and let's talk about the decisions that both the Panthers and the Bears made with this trade and how it looks now. So first off, we have to talk about the trade details itself. So there was, this was a trade for pick number 1. That's what the Carolina Panthers obviously wanted. In exchange for that, they gave up a 2023 first-round pick, which was pick 9, a 2023 second-round pick, which was a late second-round pick, pick 61, and then 2024 first-rounder, which ended up being the first overall pick, and then the one pick that still has yet to be used, the 2025 second-round selections. So those were the actual picks. Of course, DJ Moore was also thrown in, so that's the official trade. Both first overall picks were used straight up. So Bryce Young was selected first overall by the Carolina Panthers, and then Caleb Williams was selected first overall by the Chicago Bears. Of course, there's two kind of glaring issues right off the bat before we get into anything else. The first one being that a lot of people feel as though Caleb Williams is a great prospect and is a better prospect than Bryce Young. So just inherently, when you trade for a first overall pick and then next year one of the picks you gave up ends up being another first overall pick, it's probably going to mean that you lose the trade 9 out of 10 times because of that. Especially when it's a quote-unquote generational prospect like Caleb Williams is. The other thing that we don't have to spend forever on, but should be mentioned, is Bryce Young was selected one pick after C.J. Stroud, one pick before C.J. Stroud. Many people did have C.J. Stroud as quarterback 1. Bryce Young was the consensus quarterback 1, but hey, I had C.J. Stroud as quarterback 1, and I'm horrible at evaluating quarterbacks. So it's not like nobody had it the other way. So there is that thing you could blame the Panthers for as well. But let's get into the picks itself. So pick 9 and pick 61 in 2023, neither were selected straight up by the Chicago Bears. The Bears traded pick 9 to the Eagles, who selected Jalen Carter, who had a really good rookie year. The Bears selected Darnell Wright, who was okay last year, and then they had a 4th-round pick, which they just spent on a punter. So don't know if the punter is the difference between Darnell Wright and Jalen Carter. This is certainly one that the Bears, I'm sure, would like to have back. Now, many people have wondered, hey, Jalen Carter was someone who had off-the-field issues. Would he have been able to work in an environment like Chicago that doesn't quite have the leadership that they have in Philadelphia? Who knows, but to me, that's full speculation. On paper, this is definitely one the Chicago Bears would like to have back. Meanwhile, pick 61 was traded to the Jaguars along with pick 136. The Jaguars selected Brenton Strange and Yasir Abdullah, who both of which, have gotten some playing time, but haven't done a ton. The Bears got Tyreek Stevenson, who also hasn't done a ton, but has shown some flashes. So I think the Bears feel good about this trade, certainly a lot more than the other one. So those are the full details. This is the trade from the Chicago Bears perspective. They got Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, Darnell Wright, Torrey Taylor, Tyreek Stevenson, and a 2025 second-round pick in exchange for Jalen Carter, Bryce Young, Brenton Strange, and Yasir Abdullah. It's never great when the biggest piece of a trade that you had to give up what didn't even go to the other team that you traded for. So for the Panthers, they're kind of a bit bummed out that the biggest piece that the Bears gave up didn't even go to you. That was Jalen Carter. Now, Bryce Young's had a bad rookie year. That does not mean Bryce Young is locked into being a bad player. But as it stands right now, for the Carolina Panthers, looking at all these pieces that you could have had, and hey, if you played it perfectly, which you can never expect a team to do, but if they played it perfectly, there is a world where maybe they end up keeping DJ Moore, drafting Jalen Carter with pick number 9, and then still having the worst team in football the following year, getting Caleb Williams then. There is a kind of way you can paint that picture if you wanted to. Of course, no way of knowing they would have been the worst team in football had they not drafted Bryce Young. Maybe they end up, starting Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton's a pretty good quarterback. Maybe they win a couple more games and end up not picking first overall. But I think for the Panthers' perspective, again, as things stand right now, they had a chance to get two really good quarterback prospects. CJ Stroud, who got MVP votes as a rookie, and then Caleb Williams, who has yet to play. No one knows how he's going to be, but many believe he is going to be very good. So when you had an opportunity to get either of those two players, didn't get any of them, and what you gave up was a top 10 pick that could have been selected on Jalen Carter if you wanted, and DJ Moore on top of it, and still a second-round pick that could be a high second-round pick next year. It looks rough. It's also worth mentioning from the Bears' perspective, this is really good. Like, this has been a good job by the Chicago Bears. It's funny how people always kind of say, oh, teams need to replicate that strategy. It's like, okay, sure, replicate the Bears' strategy of trading for a future first overall pick. In a situation where you're also getting a package for a really good wide receiver and another first round pick. It's like, yes, in a vacuum, you would love to be able to do that. You don't know, which pick is going to be first overall. There is an element of luck that happened with the Bears. They certainly got lucky, although it was still the right strategy at the time. And it especially helps when there's a potential superstar level quarterback going with the next pick. Yeah, a lot of good stuff for the Chicago Bears. As for the Carolina Panthers, here's the other thing I think we should just throw in. Because again, a lot of people are going to view this as, haha, Panthers are stupid. But I will half-heartedly defend them. I'll defend them to some degree. Yeah, I will. Because I think it's reasonable to say with Carolina, things worked out worst case scenario so far. For one thing, there is no such thing as a perfect quarterback prospect. The Panthers had to have known when they traded for Bryce Young, it was not a guarantee he was going to be successful. There was plenty of reason to believe Bryce Young would be good coming out of college. Basically everyone thought he was a good prospect. So the fact that he struggled out of the gate is the first step in a worst case scenario type outcome. The other situation is that they were all right last year. I think people forget. With 2 weeks left in the season, the Panthers were almost like going to make the playoffs. Like they were there. They had an 11-point lead against Tampa Bay in the second to last game of the season. Had they won that, they would have just needed to win their final game of the season to clinch the postseason. Like they were there. They ended up blowing that fourth quarter lead, and then the Tampa Bay was able to make the playoffs instead. But like they were right there. So I kind of get why they thought maybe they were a little closer than they actually were. I think the other issue was that, without DJ Moore there, they didn't really replace the receiving core. And to me, I think that the trade itself is a move you can make. I would argue they made other mistakes around the trade that made it worse, such as not helping out Bryce Young. Because, Bryce Young could still be good. It's possible he's just been he was in a bad situation last year. There's no denying that. So, I'll half-heartedly defend it a little bit, but this is just going back to my general philosophy with quarterbacks. You're always better off just having more swings. It's why I didn't love the Trey Lance trade either by the 49ers. Upgrading from Garoppolo made total sense, but I'd rather have 3 shots with the 3 first-round picks than 1 shot, even if it's a little bit of a better shot. That tends to be how I view things. But the last thing I'll end with is that with these quarterback trades, kind of the way this always works is that essentially the team that wins and trades with a quarterback is which team got the better quarterback. That's how these things always really go. Revisiting the Russell Wilson trade, it's certainly something that you look at now and say, what a horrible job by Denver. But it's because Russell Wilson wasn't good. If Russell Wilson was good, it would have been a fine trade by Denver, a good trade by the Denver Broncos, right? Same thing with the Deshaun Watson trade. And that could happen here as well. For all we know, Bryce Young will end up being the better quarterback out of these two. If Bryce Young does play better this upcoming season and does become the guy we thought he could be coming out of college, and Caleb Williams never makes it work and ends up being a bust, well, then we look at this and say, wow, the Bears really screwed that up. They should have stuck where they were at and, drafted Bryce Young. As much as we criticize this trade now, had they drafted CJ Stroud, and CJ Stroud was, still as awesome as he has been with Houston, nobody is sitting here saying what a bad trade by Carolina. It's just, it hasn't worked out. And the one thing I would say as well is that, again, yes, in hindsight, Bryce Young over CJ Stroud was dumb. Reportedly the Houston Texans were considering trading up to pick number 1 to try and get Bryce Young, but didn't love the price and said, you know what, we like Stroud a lot too, so we'll just take him. Kind of long story short, yes, it's been a horrible result. Still don't think it was the best process, but I think it was kind of a subpar process. Worst case scenario result is how I view it for the Panthers, but that's still a so far, and things can change. That's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.